bag as well, and they were giving her a bunch of shit as they were searching my bag. And we're live.
I hit the button too soon. Sorry.
So yeah, so it was interesting that it was interesting that they thought my microphone was a bomb.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that story is kind of relevant to today's topic. But before we get into that story, we'll introduce the topic. Welcome to the Thresholds of Reality, everybody. This is the podcast where we explore unexplained and mysterious events, phenomena, and legends. Today we're exploring Mkultra and its predecessors, kind of the government programs that led up to it, and also its successor programs. And the reason we brought this up is because of our last interview, a fellow by the name of Johnny G. We've dubbed him Jason Porn. Awesome guy with some wild experiences. Before we get into it, gonna hit that intro. Strap in as we explore the edges of the unknown.
Welcome.
Sticks, thanks for tuning in. We are going super dark today. So Kyle was talking about how he got his bag checked at TSA coming home from his trip to Indiana. Did you get a chance to look into Mkultra at all?
I did. I read up on some stuff and yep. I'm excited.
Jersey to the Bay. Thank you for joining us live. Oh my gosh. This is awesome. Sweet. Today we're talking about Mkultra. So our last episode was 2 weeks ago. We talked to Johnny G, and Johnny G brought up a lot of subjects that bring to mind Mkultra. What he was talking about was basically psychological control over a soldier from a distance, which is something that was used in the Jason Bourne series. They call it Project Treadstone. They had other names for it later on, or Operation Treadstone, some things like that. And come to find out that the truth is often stranger than the fiction. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was Operation Paperclip, and then maybe Kyle, you can go in a little bit more detail on Mkultra, what you found.
My favorite part was Operation Midnight Climax.
They have all these like wild operation designations, but if you guys are familiar with comic books or even the MCU movies, they did kind of touch on this type of thing, Operation Paperclip, in the Captain America series. And what Operation Paperclip was an effort to bring Nazi scientists or researchers over to the United States in order to combat the Soviet acquisition of Nazi scientists. The volunteers there were no volunteers for Mkultra testing. They didn't know.
He is currently one.
You might be a volunteer without even knowing. That's like the main thing about Mkultra. But at any rate, the U.S. was able to acquire about 1,000 Nazi scientists versus the Soviets, who were able to incorporate like 2,200 Nazi scientists into their military research applications. Now, primarily, the Nazi scientists that the U.S. brought over were related to missile ballistics and rockets and kind of aerodynamics or nuclear weapons applications. but they did bring over a handful of medical, human experimentation doctors, and chemists and chemical engineers. So it wasn't all just ballistics guys. Yi says Houston water does taste funny. Yeah, I'm sure it does. You might want to run that through a Brita filter or something.
Get all the psychedelics out of it.
Yeah. So they brought these Nazi scientists over, plus their families, and I mean the U.S. military and the CIA in particular, started putting them to work and consulting, continuing some of their experiments, and figuring out how to even conduct these experiments. Now, this led to the creation of what is Project MKUltra in 1953. So it was like in the early 1940s through the end of World War II and then afterwards. So basically the 40s was when all of Operation Paperclip, and it's named Operation Paperclip because the scientists that the U.S. military wanted, they would just put a paperclip attached to their file. And that's why it was called that. And so those are basically the Hydra Nazi scientists. And none of them were ever tried for war crimes except one, and he was acquitted. But some of them did leave the U.S. because of inquiry into their Nazi affiliation and activities. Most of this stuff, never even saw the light of day.
They destroyed most of the files.
Yeah. So Project MKUltra, Kyle, you want to talk a little bit about what you were able to dig up on it?
So what I dug up was that it was a top secret CIA project that lasted from 53 to about 73. And during that, what they did was the United States was in fear that Soviet, Chinese, North Korea, they were already using mind control to brainwash U.S. soldiers that were prisoners of war. So to get in on it, because everyone's got to be on the bandwagon. Alan Dulles, he was the director of the CIA at the time. He's the one who approved this Project MKUltra in 53. And this was so that they could use it against Soviets as mind control and stuff. So they what they did was they went to what best place to do it than use college kids. Yeah. Colleges, they did colleges, hospitals, prisons, and what they did
brothels.
Was
they did brothels.
They did coming up as they did. See, what happened was it got really loosey goosey, and it kind of turned into a party. These CIA people that were conducting these experiments, it kind of turned into a party. But like it went in. They had Operation Midnight Climax, which is they would hire prostitutes to lure people, unsuspecting men, to CIA safe houses where they could do they do these LSD experiments.
Yeah.
But some of them, they used ecstasy, heroin, meth, mushrooms, and LSD, all these different to try and to do mind control.
Yeah, they use like mescaline, they use DMT, AMT, they use all these psychedelics, of course, LSD. They had the primary purpose was psychological warfare, including torture, including truth serums. They basically were trying to figure out a way to break the minds of the soldiers that they had captured.
But all they did was expand them, bro. We expanded our minds.
And then two, protect their own people from such techniques.
Because this is kind of what got the whole psychedelic hippie revolution going.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these people, the CIA gave them these hallucinogens and hallucinogenics and everything, and they were like, "This shit's a party, man. We're gonna, like the guitarist of the Grateful Dead was part of the MK Ultra. Not Jerry Garcia, the other guitar player. He was actually part of the MK Ultra trials, and that's how he used. That's how the basis of how they became the psychedelic band, the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
So you know what?
There's a lot of those like
the CIA for giving us the Grateful Dead.
Well, there's a lot of the kind of LSD tripping visual motif with the Grateful Dead, with like the swirls and the bright colors. It was very common.
The black lights, man.
And what's interesting is that the CIA ended up purchasing something like 100 million doses of LSD. They had so much LSD, they didn't have enough people in their agency to use it all. So they just started just like throwing it out to everybody.
You get some LSD. You get some LSD.
Yeah. It sounds like a good party unless you don't know that you're gonna get it.
Well, like the Unabomber was part of it as well.
Unabomber, yeah.
And he didn't actually know that that's what he was being. That's the point of what he was going through, and so was and then what's kind of cool is was James Joseph Whitey Bugler, the Boston mobster.
Whitey Bulger, yeah.
He was in it when he was in prison, and he was pissed. He wanted to get back at all of them for making him go through all that. So he must have had a bad trip, man.
This whole notion of informed consent, which most study participants have to give now, is not a concept that the CIA was employing in MK Ultra. In fact, there were hardly any informed participants in any of these experiments. The experiments were often conducted by people with zero scientific training. They basically they picked up an asset with access to a hospital or a brothel, and they said, "Hey, slip this into somebody's bloodstream somehow, and let's see what happens."
Man, could you imagine that though? Like the guy who wrote One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was part of this. He did MK Ultra as well, and then later on he started doing crazy LSD parties.
Yeah, but at least the people there knew they were doing an acid trip, right? They knew what they were going to get. A lot of folks across the United States and Canada were given doses of LSD, some for extended periods of time, without knowing that that's what was happening.
Hey, man, we want to give you a psychedelic drug. I mean, that would be horrible, though. Like, they put a little bit, like, in like a sugar cube, and they give it to you, and you don't know what's in there, and you eat the sugar cube, and all of a sudden, 40 minutes later, you're like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, so in the early days of the project, there was a guy named Frank Olson who was dosed in his coffee, and 9 days later, he ended up jumping out a window of a 13th floor of a hotel and died. And for a long time, they ruled it a suicide, but people who were in the project knew that he had been dosed without his knowledge. And eventually his son kept digging, and found out that he had been dosed against his will because he was having doubts about the ethics of the project.
Well, it
and
looks like the family actually had a second autopsy performed in '94,
yeah.
and that's when they said that that the forensic team found injuries on his body, that had likely occurred before the fall. So he was probably just losing his mind.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's evidence that he may have been witness to some really heinous acts by the CIA and was getting ready to drop a bomb on the CIA in terms of transparency. He's going to go and expose all the things that they were doing to the public. And suddenly he's jumping out of a 13th floor window.
And a lot of this was hush hush, no monitoring. There was very little reporting even back to it. They just, it was kind of just left for a free for all.
Well, the thing is, we don't know, right? We don't know everything, but and the reason we don't know, and we'll get back to some of the other things that we do know, but the reason we don't know is that in 1973, the director of the CIA shut down MKUltra and he ordered all of the records destroyed because of Watergate.
Yep.
And he's like, if it gets out what we've been up to, we'll be crucified. And so he ordered all of the records related to MKUltra to be destroyed. But fortunately for us, some of those records were misarchived. They were archived in the wrong place. And they were archived as financial records. And so 20,000 documents survived to be discovered in 1977.
What is this bill for $200,000 for magic mushrooms?
Yeah, why are we buying $200,000 worth of magic mushrooms? And they were given to Congress, who was doing like an in-depth investigation into all this. And so it's only thanks to those records that we really have an idea of the scope of MKUltra. And I want to read some of the stated aims. They were trying to locate substances which would promote illogical thinking and impulsiveness to the point where the recipient would be discredited in public. I mean,
so you're like in every bar at 12:30 at night.
Yeah, but
Okay.
yeah, exactly. Like you can turn on the TV right now and see illogical thinking and impulsiveness.
I see it on Facebook every day.
Every day. They were looking for substances which would increase the efficiency of mentation and perception. Have you ever seen that movie, Limitless?
Mm-hmm.
That's what that is, right? That's where it's like, what's the drug they do for ADHD? Ritalin, yeah. That's an example of a substance that they were looking for. Materials which will prevent or counteract the intoxicating effect of alcohol, and materials which will promote the intoxicating effect of alcohol. So they were trying to increase the effectiveness of alcohol and, the opposite. Materials which would produce the signs and symptoms of a recognized disease in a reversible way so that they could be used for faking a disease. There's a lot, I can think of lots of reasons why you'd want to do something like that. There's something like that in the first Mission Impossible movie where they put a nauseating agent into somebody's coffee in the CIA headquarters. Then they have materials which will render the induction of hypnosis easier or otherwise enhance its usefulness. So there you go.
Didn't they do that with? Weren't they experimenting on that with TV?
Yeah, I think so. They were doing subliminal messages and
mm-hmm.
transmissions designed to create a psychic effect or psychological effect. Then they had torture substances used for either enhancing or preventing brainwashing and torture. They were working on drugs to produce amnesia during or preceding the use of those drugs. So basically roofies. Physical methods of producing shock and confusion over extended periods of time, and capable of surreptitious use. So that's what you're talking about, is the TV stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But they were also, other uses of subliminal messages. And then one of the things that I thought was really weird was substances which will lower the ambition and general working efficiency of men when administered in undetectable amounts. And I was like, that's just getting older, right? But they were trying to make men less manly. And
mission accomplished,
right?
I think they've done that. No, I'm sure.
Like, that must be a project they're still working on. They've got it in the water supply, right? Alex Jones says it makes the frogs gay. Got some in the water that makes the frogs gay.
I mean, I'm surprised with the way technology is now that they haven't come back. I know, like, they can't, like, the 1976 executive order prohibits experimentation with drugs on human subjects, but I'm surprised they haven't come back around to trying this again.
Well, okay, so that's something that I want to. That's like the tinfoil hat part of this episode.
Okay.
Did any of this get shelved, or is it all still being conducted, or any parts of it still, what you might call extant, which is the opposite of extinct, right? It's still existing to this day. And Project MKUltra, absolutely crazy. One of the things that I find personally fascinating is this outcropping of MKUltra was this military unit in the Army that was created solely for the purpose of using paranormal or superhuman abilities to enhance military operations. And it was the basis of the book, The Men Who Stare at Goats. There was a movie based on that book that came out in 2009, starring everyone's favorite Jedi, Ewan McGregor. But the idea was that they were using some of the same drugs and same techniques to find and recruit psychically enabled individuals into the Army for use in military applications. And one of the things, the way it got its name is that they had this one guy who was like a martial arts guy. And he claimed to be able to stare at a goat and then cause it to die just by staring at it. And he claimed to have been able to perform that same technique or attack on a live guinea pig and a goat. Yeah, he's basically just staring at it until it died. He says,
I'm trying to do that so everybody
listed
listens
is legal
to Thresholds of Reality.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Scanners?
Yes.
Where that guy's head explodes?
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But that was a real military unit. And they worked on things like phase transitioning, where they would be able to run through walls. They worked on things like levitation, teleportation, telekinesis, psychokinesis, all of these different paranormal or supernatural abilities. And a lot of it was based on drug use. They would use LSD, DMT, mescaline to try and open their minds and enhance their abilities.
Reminds me of the beginning of Pineapple Express, where they're all smoking weed, where they're in the underground bunker. You know what I'm talking about?
Sure.
The Reefer Madness.
Absolutely. But this is a lot, these are psychedelics. It's way more intense,
But you think they would have done something different with the way the psychedelics were, like the way they made the acid? Do you think they would have tried to tweak the formula so that it wasn't so out there, like so to hone it in instead of just like overdosing people on it? Like they think they would have tweaked the actual formula instead of buying the formula or buying the acid and just handing it out. You think they would have tried to create a better way of making it?
Well, they did. And they created something they call BZ to basically militarize or weaponize the hallucinogen. And they have all kinds of drugs that we'll never know about because of all the records that were destroyed, right? Their research notes, their chemical formulas, those are all lost to history. We have a few accounts of survivors of Mkultra or these military units, paranormal units that survive today, but they're few and far between. So really, we'll never know what they got up to in Mkultra. And the way I look at it is, you have Mkultra is like the special science division from the Marvel universe, right? With Agent Carter, and where she becomes kind of the director of SSD. And then eventually that program gives way to SHIELD. And we have our own SHIELD today called DARPA. Have you ever heard about DARPA?
No, but I am now.
So DARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, which is a research and development agency under the U.S. Department of Defense. And they have hundreds of modern warfare projects that they are working on. Some of the active projects include anti-submarine warfare vessels, cancer research, digital research, and antivirus coding and that kind of thing. They have remote control insect applications that they're trying to do, where they get control of bugs and use bugs for reconnaissance and sabotage.
It reminds me of that story. I don't know if you ever heard it, but this lady had trained a bunch of squirrels.
No, I haven't heard about that.
So there was a lady, I think it was like Minnesota or somewhere. She had trained squirrels to attack, and her boyfriend had cheated on her, and she had sent these squirrels to attack, and they attacked her boyfriend. And that led me to that's something that the military should hone in on, and we can drop these squirrels in, and they could just in these little parachutes and little berets, you know what I mean? And just come down and go to town on our enemy. These just mad crate squirrels. Because obviously, if this lady can train, 10 squirrels to attack her boyfriend,
yeah, absolutely.
We can train thousands of them to
some of these things. It's which came first, the comic book or the project, the real life project? Because Insect Allies is basically Ant-Man without the shrinking, right?
Yeah.
He talks to the bugs and he tells the bugs what to do. but they're also trying to do the same thing with soldiers by using neural implants for soldiers that allow them to be enhanced physically, mentally, possibly remote controlled.
I need one that makes me lose weight.
And that's kind of where it ties into our buddy Johnny G, is that it sounds like he was kind of activated through something like a neural implant. But they have other projects that just, there's so many. They include space, they include video and audio manipulation like deepfakes and deepfake debunking. But they have something that is very similar for audio, where you can replicate somebody's voice and make it almost indistinguishable from the actual person's voice. They have weapons programs. One of the weapons program that is called Mad Fire's Multi-Azimuth Defense Fast Intercept Round Engagement System. And these are smart bullets. They combine the advantages of a missile, including guidance, precision, and accuracy, with the advantages of a bullet, which is speed, rapid fire, and large ammunition capacity, to be used on a medium caliber guided projectile in defending ships. So I think that was a Tony Stark Iron Man weapon, where he shoots out just a ton of these little rounds that then are guided to a particular target. That's something they're actually working on right now.
It'd be cool. You could enter somebody's name in.
Yeah, that was like Fifth Element stuff, right?
Yeah. Like you could imagine if they came up with something that was like, if they had some of their like DNA and they could swab this, they could insert it into this like weapon, and this weapon can locate it on Earth, and they can.
Yeah. So one of the other things that they've started to, that's really seen a lot of publicity, is facial recognition software. And that is something that they are actually using for military and law enforcement applications, or not just tracking people, but also tracking the emotions on people's faces to determine whether or not they're a threat.
Oh, he's sad. He's okay. Let him through.
Oh, he looks angry, and his eyes are shifting a lot. He looks like he could be a threat.
Can you imagine that though? Like now they're trying to predetermine that you might be up to something before you even do something. Just
by pre-crime,
body language or action. Exactly.
It's very Philip K. Dick, right? Just Minority Report. All of those things are actually being developed right now by the real world shield called DARPA. And DARPA is quite transparent about the projects that it's doing. So we might do a sequel to this episode and take a look at some of the particular projects, because they have videos. One of the very popular weapons applications they have is a railgun that they've been working on with the Navy for a long time. You know what a railgun is?
No.
So a railgun is a gun that doesn't use gunpowder or combustibles as its projectile, or as its accelerant, I should say. Instead, it uses magnets. So you have two magnetic tracks, and you have a magnetic projectile. And by manipulating the electromagnetic fields generated by these tracks, you can get the projectile up to incredible speeds. And the Navy is working on, or they've developed a railgun that can shoot things at like Mach 5. Shoot these projectiles at like Mach 5. And the projectile
combustion there, so I wonder if these guns are quieter.
No, not at all.
No, not at all.
They're moving so fast.
Hey, it's still breaking the sound barrier.
And they generate so much heat that they often create a plasma trail behind it, like lightning. like fire and lightning that creates a huge thunderous recoil or report. So they're not quiet.
Wow.
They're super loud because the projectile is moving at such intense speeds.
So I imagine those are like on like aircraft carriers and battleships. Then it's something that.
I don't know if they're actively on them right now, but that's the idea. Is they're going to put them on these huge huge watercraft to send them out and use them to shoot.
So, do you know what, for next year's DARPA budget, do you know what it is?
I have no idea.
So they requested $4.119 billion. $4
billion, a little over $4 billion.
Yep.
To keep us safe. One of the other things, they have a soft shell Iron Man suit that they're working on.
Sweet.
So instead of metal, it's plastic, but it increases strength and motility of anybody who's wearing the suit, so that if you have to lift heavy things, it doesn't hurt your back or your shoulders or anything.
Oh, I need one of those now. Imagine working on your car, you just lift it up.
But one of the things that I wanted to touch on is the idea of government secret activities, clandestine activities. I had a conversation with somebody on Reddit the other day, and it was really strange. I was talking about possible connections. It's like, just kind of a tinfoil hat thing. I wasn't like super serious about it, but I was like, what if the FBI is involved in a mass shooting, particular mass shooting? And the reason I brought it up is because the FBI just in the recent draft of the gun control bill, the FBI stands to get something like $2 to $3 billion from Congress. And they always say, if you can't really make a path through the evidence, then follow the money. Who stands to gain the most?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of my thinking. And somebody had posted this list of like 500 times when the FBI had already done that. They had already armed somebody who went out and committed some heinous crime, and then the FBI did it for their own institutional benefit. And I get this really weird personal message on Reddit. I've been on Reddit for 9 years, and I've only received a personal message 4 times. And it's usually someone saying, "Hey, I sell art," or "Hey, I thought you had a really cool post, and I wanted to say thanks for posting that." This guy comes on, his username is FThePolice420, and all he's doing is telling me that I'm effing retarded, I'm effing stupid, and his words, not mine, and that I should use my guns. He's trying to convince me to use my guns. Doesn't say on who. He's saying use your guns. I'm like, who is this guy? Am I talking to a Fed? Is this the Fed? And it was really troubling. And I've got to believe that there are people out there, because that's basically how every federal operation starts, is with a federal operative, federal agent trying to convince somebody to commit a crime. Right? Governor Whitmer kidnapping plot started with a federal agent trying to convince, well, actually, it was like a dozen federal agents trying to convince 6 guys to kidnap Governor Whitmer.
And they did it.
Well, they were like forced into doing it by these federal agents. Like, it wasn't their idea, wasn't their plan. They basically just got roped into it because they seemed like dupes. They seemed like willing idiots who could be easily persuaded into doing it. And then when the federal agents, when the FBI uncovered the plot that they themselves had cooked up, they went around patting themselves on the back. They arrested the guys. They charged them.
We got him.
And they're like, we did it. We got him. And away they went. Well, they went to trial. They brought 3 of them to trial, or they brought 2 of them to trial, and the 2 of them were acquitted. There's 2 still awaiting trial. They got their trial postponed because of the result. And there's 2 that have no trial date set yet. Chad Cave says, you're talking to a crazy person, bro. There's a crap ton of them. Yeah, that's true. There probably are a lot of crazy people. But the guy's name was F the Police 420, and he was haranguing me for criticizing the police.
Dude, that sounds like a cop name. A cop
Right?
internet name.
It's like crypto names. They're so obviously scams, right? One of them is called Safe Moon because, oh, it's going to get to the moon and it's safe. And then it's absolutely
a guy that I know that I worked with, he was on Tinder, maybe Tinder, Match.com, one of those kind of sites. And he met a girl on there. And within like 20 hours of them talking, she was like, hey, I'm into this crypto thing where I can make you a lot of money. Just send me $1,000 and I'll make you a bunch of money. And he goes, okay. Send her $1,000. He's like, I need 5. And he's like, okay. So he sent her 5,000. So now he's at a total of 6. So what they did was and if you Google the site, the first thing that comes up is scam site. It just started like 2 weeks before she started talking to him. So it's like gambling on crypto. You get these like 30-second times and you put money in, then you make like 10% of your wager back. And it's on the how the crypto. And I was like, and then she comes back. So he came back. He said he made like $2,000. And then she come back. She says, "Give me 50,000." And what happens is when you put your money in, you have to call this weird call center and convince them to let you get your money back. So he had to fight to get his money back. And I was like, dude. And part of him was like, I just want to see how far this goes.
Yeah, but how much money can you afford to waste on stuff like that?
Yeah, just on a gag, just on a shits and giggle. But he said he made about $2,000 and then he dipped.
Well, that's the way to go, man.
And I guess she flipped out. We need that money back now. We need that money. How did you get that money? But I guess she was like from China.
Yeah, so that's the thing, is that the question is, are these things still happening? Is the government still conducting illegal experiments or conducting clandestine operations against us? Is that still happening? That's my question to you.
It has to be. They've just found other ways to do it.
Well, yeah, they don't leave a paper trail, right? That's the one thing you got to learn. If you're going to do something illegal, it's all verbal. You don't leave a paper trail. Anything written down is going to end up as evidence in court someday, right? Rule number 1. If you put it in an email or you write it down on a piece of paper, it's going to be evidence someday.
I think the government's new tactic is, let's make everybody a Instagram, what's it called?
Influencer?
Yes. So that nobody wants to work. Everybody just wants to be an influencer.
Chad says, I want to say no, but it feels wildly naive to say it. Yeah, absolutely. Like, how much experience do we need to have? Like, the 20th century was 100% proof positive that you cannot trust government, whether it's a communist government or a capitalist government or whatever. Government is not acting in your best interest.
No.
Like they will do untold horrors to their citizens. That's what the 20th century was all about. Untold horrors. And now we're like, don't we think that government ought to be restrained in some way?
See, I think what the government learned from some stuff like MKUltra and stuff, let's not go balls deep in it. Let's not dive into it hardcore at once. Let's trickle it out. Let's very slowly trickle it out so that all the stupid people don't realize it's happening.
Yeah, I think that's the correct way to look at it. I think
so by the time it's here, we've already been acclimated to whatever experiment that they were doing.
Yeah, as far as government surveillance, you have the Patriot Act, which has been totally abused. Right? Instead of trying to find terrorists, they've just turned it on, collecting all of our phone data, cell phone data. Just to see what we're up to. And then if you ever get in trouble, they already have your data available. And then if you want to talk about social media is now so enlaced with the federal government that most of the major social media companies have granted the federal government unrestricted access to your social media posts and data. Not just what you're posting, but what you're looking at too. Federal government can see it.
That's why when we think about something, we get an ad on Facebook to buy it.
Yeah, that's like predictive ad targeting. Those algorithms Facebook protects them very, I would say, energetically. And the reason they do that is because it's very powerful technology. All right. Chad wants us to take a look at Stanley Meyer, who invented the water-powered hydrogen engine.
It's crazy. I watched something on him a while back, and it's crazy.
He says he went across the country on 20 gallons of water, took a sip of cranberry juice one day and fell over dead.
His last words were, "They poisoned me," and
exclaimed, "They killed me."
Yeah. In
the 1990s. Chad absolutely 100% believed that he was killed. I've been accused by F the Police 420 of being crazy QAnon conspiracy theorist. And I kind of take that as a badge of honor because after Jeffrey Epstein, all of this stuff, like Pedophile Island was a real thing. So now it's like, what else? Like that was the craziest conspiracy. That was the craziest one. And it turned out to be real. So
and I think that's the other thing that's come out of a lot of misdirection. Hey, look at me over here. Let's do this and this and this and this real quick.
Yeah.
Hey, there's all this crazy stuff going on. Oh yeah, we see UFOs. Nobody cares.
Yeah. Nobody cares about UFOs. UFOs are real. Government has come out and said, yeah, all those weird tapes that were released and leaked, those are real. And
but look, there's a pandemic, everybody. There's a pandemic over here.
And we don't know what to tell you. We're not going to tell you anything.
Pay attention to this pandemic.
There's just a lot of misdirection. I think the thing that they learned the best from MKUltra is how the human brain or how humans react to adverse information. And it's just absolutely bizarre. The stuff that we're expected to believe is just accidental or just coincidental and is not intentional operation of some secret government organization. Brian says, Aaron W. Salter did the same thing with water-powered engine, and he was the first person killed in the Buffalo massacre this year.
Well, yeah. Oh, what do you mean we don't have to use oil to run our cars? Look how many high influential people would not make money then.
Yeah.
It's what do you mean we could do it on water? Oh my God. We wouldn't pollute our environment and it's just water. And what do you mean I'd lose money on oil? Get rid of that guy. And then they disappear.
Yeah.
I mean,
so what I hope is that when you guys are watching the news and you see something that doesn't make sense, Judge Judy always says, if something doesn't make sense, it's because somebody is lying. That was Judge Judy's thing all the time. He says water like from the toilet. Yeah, water from the toilet, but ideally we'd want them to use things like seawater, which is not something that we drink, right? We don't want to use potable water or potable derivatives. We want to use seawater. Anyway, so
it's got electrolytes.
Give Gatorade. So when you see things like a school shooting that doesn't make sense, right? How did the guy get the guns? How come he wrecked his car? How did he get waltzed right into a school that had security automatic locks? Why did the police stand around for an hour and 15 minutes waiting for something to happen? How did they know to go to the school when the car was wrecked a 25-minute walk away, which is like over a mile away, right? How did they know all that? And none of it like really makes sense, right? It doesn't make any sense.
It's one of the reasons I hate to admit it, though, is like that's one of the reasons why I can't watch the news. It's because I sit there and watch it, and it pisses me off because I go, "This doesn't make sense," and they're reporting it, and it always refers back to me to what they say in Men in Black. The person is smart, people are stupid.
Yeah, and what Chad is saying, every single one of those cops should be fired. And yet none of them are. None of them have been fired. And so, yeah, your brain is telling you things should have gone a different way. And since they didn't go that way, what are the repercussions? And to me, I ask a question. If the cops had been trying to maximize casualties, what would they have done any differently than they did that day? If they were trying to maximize death and pain, what would they have done differently than they did that day?
Yeah, and then what was it? The city here of Chandler came out after the last shooting and was like, "We've implemented something that we're going to react faster now." What do you mean you're just now implementing something to react faster? Like all this stuff that's been going on, you're just now thinking about figuring out ways to react faster?
Well, it's because nobody wants that kind of thing to happen here, right? And so police forces are coming out and saying, well, we're looking at our response protocols and figuring out what's going on and seeing what we can do to improve. And I'm like, no, I think there's other forces at work here. It wasn't about response time because they were there 2 minutes after the guy showed up. They had impeccable response time. They basically showed up at the same time at the school as the shooter. The same time.
Like, how do you know it's going to happen before it happens?
How did they know it was going to happen before it happened? How did they know that? I don't think, Chad, I don't think it's cowardice. I don't think it's cowardice. I think it was planned for them to wait outside the classroom until they got word from their commanding officer, and their commanding officer wasn't going to wasn't going to move until he got word from somebody else. I think it was all calculated.
See, I think this is kind of what they've learned from Mkultra too, is there's other ways to instill fear and to brainwash. And I think these are the kind of ways to instill brainwashing. Like, make it so it happens so much that like we're almost like glazing it over. And then we can keep doing it to get our agenda. Because obviously there's some kind of agenda.
Yeah. I think, what I want is for you, the viewers, to understand that whatever you're being told is not necessarily the truth. And in fact, you should assume it isn't the truth, because by and large, ever since the 20th century, government has been in the business of manipulating our perceptions of reality. MKUltra is absolute proof that that's the case. And there are a lot of moral people who say we shouldn't be doing that. But there's a lot of other people out there who are saying, in government, who are saying, we need to continue this work. It's important work. And maybe there are government officials who are saying, we need to study virulent virus spreads in order to defend ourselves against them. And then in that effort, perhaps create a super virus that then spreads to the world, killing millions. That's a possibility. And so just remember that was basically what MKUltra was. But instead with viruses, it was with brainwashing, psychological warfare, and the like. So is government out to protect us, or is it out to destroy us? Like, it's hard to even distinguish between the two anymore, because their efforts to protect often result in our destruction.
Well, you don't want people going against them. You got to keep them in line, right? I mean, just like your kids, you don't want your kids out of control. You keep them in line. You tell them what you think they need. You know what I mean? Like, not necessarily to that extent, but I mean, you know what I mean? They're just doing it on a grand scheme, but that's how do you keep people in line? You keep them scared.
Yeah.
You keep them in fear.
Well, maybe we crossed over to tinfoil hat territory a little too much today, but
is that what this show is?
We are committed to probing the depths of the thresholds of reality. And Kyle and I had a conversation about how deep we were going to go with the stuff that Johnny G talked about, because it is a little scary. It does cause my butt to clench a little bit.
And my suggestion was, let's go as deep as humanly possible as we can into this rabbit hole.
Yeah. So Kyle's supplying the courage.
We're so scared that we board up our windows.
Yeah. Kyle's supplying the courage for this particular rabbit hole. And we're going to keep pushing it. We're going to see if we can get some people on who have some more knowledge and experience, and we'll see what we can sift from all of their tales of secret clandestine government efforts.
My goal is to put Sam on a no-fly list.
Yeah. I don't even like going to the airport, man. I don't even like standing in line for TSA at all.
Like I was saying at the beginning of the show, like I put my stuff in and I did it the exact way I did it when I left. I had, you got to take your computer out and everything, but like my microphone and my headphones and all that, I put in my carry-on. And then my computer and everything, is in a separate bag. And that's exactly how I did it going through TSA here in Phoenix, but when I was leaving to get on the plane, it was weird too. This is the first time it's ever happened too. Is they were like, and I was like, oh shit, something's up, because they were like, you don't have to go through the scanner. Just walk through this metal detector and that's it. So I didn't have to get scanned. I didn't have to go like this, and because when I went through it the first time in Phoenix, they pulled me aside because they thought I had gun residue on my back. They thought I had some kind of residue from some kind of ammunition,
gunpowder or something.
Yeah, so they had to pull me aside and like rescan me, and then going back here to Phoenix, I put my stuff. I packed it the same exact way, and I went through and like the only thing that came out of the scanner was my flip flops and my wallet, phone, and my computer. And I was like, "Where's my bag at?" And I look, and they're like, "Sir, we need to take you over here. Is that your bag?" And I was like, "Fuck, yes." So they're like, "What's in your bag?" And I was like, "Clothes, microphone, right?" And they're like, so they opened my bag up, and they were like, "What's this?" And I was like, "That's a microphone." "Sir, are you sure?" It was a fucking microphone when I put it in my fucking bag. They slowly they like pushed everything aside, because I just put it on the side of my bag. It was just kind of so my clothes kind of protected it. So
Yeah.
they kind of pushed everything aside, and they slowly took it out and set it down, and they got out these two like machines, and they had one that took out, and they were like, they put it in two different scanners, and then they had these like handheld scanners that they were scanning it, and they asked me like 3 or 4 times what that was. It's like, it's a goddamn microphone. Look at it. It looks like a microphone. And then the person behind me, they were flipping out on because they had a microphone. But yeah, they thought my microphone was a bomb.
That's insane. Yeah.
I,
It's you're like, no, it's just the noise canceling microphone.
yeah, like, and they like they had like, so they had one device that they like.
You're like, I'm a white guy. I have a podcast. I have 3 podcasts.
Yeah. I was like, so there was one that they scanned, and then they took this pad off of it, like this little disc, and they put it into this other machine. And then they took this other device and they like scoped it. And I had never seen nothing like that before. I was like,
wow.
What are they doing? And then they looked at it and called something in back and forth. They talked like through walkie-talkies for a second. And then he just threw it back in my bag and zipped it up and handed me my bag.
They're like, they were Googling it to see what it was.
I guess. Yeah, that's right, Aaron. Don't you recognize me?
Says, did you say you don't recognize me from my podcast? Yeah, I'm famous, man. Talk to Ernie.
But yeah, I never had an experience like that, like with the TSA or anything. Like, usually it's just boop boop. You know what I mean? Like, but it was the TSA. They were. It was, and I thought it was weird. Like, they let me not go through the scanner. Like they were like, you can go ahead and go through this metal detector. And then the person behind me, they're like, all right, now everybody else has to go through the scanner.
Did you set off fireworks or something?
Mm-mm.
Oh.
No, because like when they checked me coming into Phoenix, all I did was I parked and I walked from the car into, inside. That was it.
That's wild.
Yeah, there was a bunch of, it was actually full of heroin. You're right, Aaron.
Yeah. Kyle's just the distraction.
was actually the person behind me that was getting everything through. Like they're like, hey,
They must, yeah, dude, Kyle, what if they sprayed some gunpowder residue on your back? And that's how it got there.
Because they put this device, like they had this thing, they like scanned it, and then they were like patting me down.
Dude, that's what happened. Somebody sprayed some gunpowder residue on your back.
All right. That guy's the distraction.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, if you want to see some popular media that talks about the same kind of things, Patriot on Amazon Prime has a lot of the same kind of like psychological spy warfare stuff. There's a lot of good stuff. But The Men Who Stare at Goats is a great movie. I really enjoyed that movie, and it's based on the book Men Who Stare at Goats. It's kind of a fictionalized account of the truth, the actual nonfiction of Men Who Stare at Goats. And then Mkultra is, we'll never know what all went on at Mkultra. But don't believe anything the government's telling you. You need to verify. You need to cross-reference. You need to see what's going on because absolutely. Oh, double O's really.
So like they had that flat metal disc scanner, but they took the front of it off and they put that little disc like into a machine. Like this
put it into a machine
that was behind this like plastic enclosure.
They credit card you with it.
Yeah.
Sweet. Credit card. You got me. Yeah. So, anything else you want to say about all this, Kyle? Until next time.
No, I think this is a fun episode. Thanks everybody for being in the
thanks
chat.
Everybody for tuning in. If anybody showed up late, go back, check it out. Also, if you haven't seen the Johnny G interview, it has almost 100 views. We'd love to see it pop across that 100 view threshold. Plus, a really entertaining interview, and he said a lot of stuff that had us kind of worried about what we just heard. But
I'd love to have him back on and continue because I know we had just that was like the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, so we actually were prompted to talk to somebody about that interview, and I sent the link to a woman who is involved with the real world Men in Black, basically some psyops organizations, and we're going to try and get her on in the next couple of weeks to talk about some of this very same stuff, but she's actually been through it. So keep an eye out for that interview, and we'll keep bringing you the good stuff. So until next time, keep on.
Tinfoil hats on.
What's that?
Keep your tinfoil hats on.
Keep your tinfoil. Yeah, don't get too far away from tinfoil territory. Right? That's going to be Aaron's new album, song title, whatever. And keep on exploring the edges of the unknown. Oh, also comment, like, subscribe, whatever you want to do. And we'll catch you next time.